At the recent UFC 290 event, Alex Volkanovski made another successful defense of his belt. The Australian has already become one of the most successful fighters in the history of the league and has no intention of stopping there. He wants to try to become a double champion again by moving up to lightweight once more for a rematch with Islam Makhachev. Their first fight was incredibly competitive. In it, Alex was able to prove himself much better than many expected from him. Does the Australian have a chance to defeat Makhachev and finally become a double champion at the second attempt? Hello fighters! With you World of MMA channel. In today's video I will give you a prediction for a potential rematch between Islam Makhachev and Alexander Volkanovski. But before we start, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give me a like. Here we go. Volkanovski has been competing in the UFC since 2016. In that time, he has already had 14 fights and 13 wins, without ever losing in the featherweight division. In 2019, he became champion by taking the belt from Max Holloway and has defended it 5 times to date. Finding intriguing challenges in his home division is becoming increasingly difficult for him. So Alex is starting to look at other weight divisions. In February this year, he moved up to lightweight to fight for the belt belonging to Islam Makhachev. It was a bout of the first and second numbers of the pound-for-pound rating, and it turned out even better than many expected. Fans and experts predicted an easy victory for Islam, because of his superiority in size and wrestling. But the Australian proved to be a real monster and a professional. He fought with dignity with Makhachev for all 5 rounds and even managed to take the end of the fight. But the judges saw the victory of the Dagestani and retained the status of champion. After that unsuccessful attempt to win the second belt, Alex had no choice to return to his home division and have a unification fight with the interim champion. But now that all issues have been settled, Volkanovski has started talking about a rematch with Islam again. Especially since that's what the audience really wants. They liked this fight so much that they wanted to see a sequel, and according to Dana White, we may well see a rematch. Islam Makhachev got into the UFC in 2015. On his account, 14 fights and 13 victories, 8 of which were obtained early. For a long time, the Dagestani was in the shadow of his older comrade. But when Khabib announced the end of his career, Islam began to gradually rise in the ratings and soon reached the championship fight. At that point, his streak stood at 10 wins in a row. At UFC 280, he faced Charles Oliveira, who was considered by many to be Makhachev's main threat in the division. Islam knocked out one of the promotion's best grapplers in the second round and became the new full title holder. In his first defense, he had to face the #1 ranked pound-for-pound fighter and the champion of another weight class, Alex Volkanovski. The Dagestani became the first to defeat him in the UFC. But unfortunately, because the fight was close and competitive, Makhachev was unable to move Alex out of first place in the pound-for-pound rankings. Now Islam is charged with proving he can handle the Aussie with more confidence, and he needs a rematch. The lightweight champion is scheduled to compete at October's #1 event in Abu Dhabi, and it was originally planned that his opponent would be Oliveira. But Charles announced that he will not have time to prepare for that date. So Makhachev is clearly in search of an opponent. It's a good time to have a second fight with Alex Volkanovski and forever close the question of which champion is the perfect fighter. Before we compare their skills, let's remember in detail how their first fight went 6 months ago. In the first round, Volkanovski signaled his intentions with accurate punches that slightly staggered Makhachev. Islam decided to compete in the stand-up, and also managed to show himself well, putting Alex on one knee. Next, the Dagestani connected his trademark wrestling and went behind his back, definitely taking the first round to his bank. In the second round, the Australian was able to defend himself much better from the wrestling, but was constantly under pressure in the stand-up and missed a pretty heavy punch, which he clearly felt. The second round also went in Islam's favor. The third 5-minute round turned out to be much closer than the previous 2. Alex was still doing a good job of defending against takedowns and keeping himself down. The fighters equalized in the stand-up, but Volkanovski took the end by successful exchanges. 2 judges gave the round to him, and the third put it 10-9 in favor of Makhachev. Islam spent the 4th round in his favorite style. He went into the wrestling, was able to get a takedown, and kept the Australian on the ground for the whole 5 minutes. This round went in his favor with no questions asked. The final championship round began in a similar fashion. But Volkanovski was able to get back to his feet and produced a terrific finish. He finished Islam with a knockdown and finished the fight in top position, breaking the champion in the ground and pound. Round 5, all 3 judges gave it to Wolf. But that didn't stop Islam Makhachev from winning by unanimous decision. Can anything change in their second meeting? Who will have a better chance to win, and what gaps do both fighters need to close? Alex Volkanovski himself said in his post-fight interview that he underestimated Islam's striking, while Makhachev clearly underestimated his wrestling, and that seems to be true. Volkanovski has never lost to anyone in the UFC in the stand-up, so that's his main strength. If the fight with Islam had gone exclusively to the striking, the outcome could have turned out very differently. The Australian was able to stagger Makhachev and delivered some very tight punches. Obviously, in the rematch, he should try to avoid the wrestling and keep the fight in the stand-up as much as possible. The Dagestani, on the other hand, was the most successful in those moments when he was able to take a takedown and get a foothold in the boxing ring. There he felt like a fish in water and was close to an early victory. Competing with Volkanovski on his hands is a very difficult and risky task. Islam may put even more emphasis on wrestling, hoping to win Alex on the canvas and keep him from opening up in the striking department. Obviously, each of the fighters will try to impose their style, just like in the first fight, and it will absolutely be another close fight. But in my opinion, the winner will again be Islam Makhachev. He is heavier, more dimensional, and not inferior to the Australian in cardio. Besides, the Dagestani said that in the first fight, he was not in the best shape, because of the fact that the time for recovery after the weigh-in was much less than usual. With proper preparation in front of his own stands, which will gather in Abu Dhabi, Islam will feel even more confident. So his chances of winning will only increase. Write in the comments your opinion on the winner of this fight. Bye everybody.